The morning that changed everything started like any other Tuesday in September. I remember checking my phone, 4:32 a.m., and feeling that familiar pull to stay under my warm covers for just 5 more minutes. But routine won out, as it usually did. I, Laurel Thorne, had been teaching 3rd grade for 8 years, and early morning runs were my sanctuary before facing 24 energetic 8-year-olds. The irony doesn't escape me now. I was trying to stay healthy, to be a better teacher, a better person. How could I have known that my dedication to pre-dawn fitness would lead to 11 minutes and 43 seconds of clinical death, and revelations that would shake me to my core? My running shoes were waiting by the door, perfectly aligned as always. A habit I'd picked up from my late father, a career military man who'd taught me that organization was next to godliness. The laces were even tucked in symmetrically, a detail that seems absurdly significant now, considering what I was about to experience. The air hit my face as I stepped onto my porch, carrying that distinctive pre-dawn crispness that makes autumn mornings in Connecticut feel almost sacred. The streetlights cast long shadows across my driveway, and somewhere in the distance, a lone car hummed along the interstate. My watch beeped. 4:45 a.m., right on schedule. I'd chosen this early hour deliberately when I started running 3 years ago. After my divorce from Mark, I needed something that was purely mine. Something that existed in a world where I wasn't someone's failed wife or overworked teacher or disappointed daughter. In these pre-dawn hours, I could just be Laurel, moving through space, one foot in front of the other. My route that morning was the same 3-mile loop I'd run hundreds of times before. Past the Presbyterian church where I taught Sunday school, around the corner by Mrs. Henderson's house with its always blooming hydrangeas, down the slight hill that led to Maple Street. The familiarity was comforting, like a well-worn prayer. I was thinking about my lesson plan for that day. We were starting our unit on the solar system when I first noticed the van. White, unmarked, idling on the corner of Maple and Church Street. Something about it niggled at my consciousness, but I dismissed the concern. This was Millbrook, Connecticut, population 8,742. Nothing bad happened here. The headphones in my ears were playing my usual morning playlist. Mostly contemporary Christian music, with some classical pieces mixed in. Matt Maher was singing about God's grace when I passed the van. I remember that detail with startling clarity now, how the lyrics about heaven seemed to hover in the air like a premonition. I didn't see the patch of black ice. Later, the police report would note that a broken water main had leaked across the sidewalk, creating a near-invisible slick spot in the pre-dawn darkness. One moment, I was running, my breath creating little clouds in the cold air, and the next. They say that time slows down in moments of crisis. That's not exactly true. Rather, your mind somehow expands to capture every excruciating detail. I remember the sensation of my feet losing contact with the ground, the way my arms windmilled uselessly against the dark sky, the sickening realization that I was falling backward, and the concrete barrier separating the sidewalk from the drainage ditch was rushing up to meet my head. There was no pain, oddly enough. Just a sound like a melon being dropped onto pavement. A sound I now know was my skull fracturing. And then a curious sensation of floating. The last thing I remember before everything changed was looking up at the stars. They seemed to be getting brighter, expanding, reaching down toward me with tendrils of light. I now know that my heart stopped at 4:53 a.m. The jogger who found me, a retired nurse named Patricia Weber, would later tell me she started CPR at 4:57 a.m. The ambulance arrived at 5:02 a.m., but in those 11 minutes and 43 seconds when I was clinically dead, I experienced something that defies explanation, something that compels me to share this story, even though I know many will dismiss it. Because what I saw, what was revealed to me about the months ahead, isn't just about my personal journey. It's a message for everyone, a warning and a promise wrapped together in divine truth. And it begins with the moment I watched my own body from above, lying broken on that frozen Connecticut sidewalk, while my spirit began its journey into realms I never knew existed. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not just the absence of sound, though my playlist had indeed gone quiet, but a profound stillness that seemed to absorb even the concept of noise. I was floating about 15 feet above my body, watching as Patricia Weber, still in her running gear, performed chest compressions with mechanical precision. Her mouth was moving, probably counting, but I couldn't hear anything. The human body is a strange thing to look at from above. Mine lay crumpled against the concrete barrier, one running shoe partially untied, my favorite purple Lululemon jacket askew. A dark puddle was spreading beneath my head, but I felt no fear or panic, only a curious detachment, as if I were watching a scene from a movie rather than my own death. That's when I noticed them, my hands. Or rather, what had replaced my hands. They were luminescent, like moonlight given form, and when I moved them, they left trails of soft light in the air. My entire being had become a kind of translucent energy, shimmering with colors that don't exist in our physical world. How strange that I can remember them so clearly, yet have no words in any earthly language to describe them. The ambulance arrived in a flash of silent red and white light. I watched the EMTs leap out, their movements precise and urgent. One of them, a young man with kind eyes, immediately took over chest compressions from Patricia. The other began setting up a defibrillator. I wanted to tell them I was fine, that there was no need for all this fuss, but I was already beginning to drift upward, drawn by something I couldn't yet see. That's when the light appeared. Not the harsh, clinical light of the ambulance's LED bars, but something entirely different. Imagine the warmest, most loving embrace you've ever experienced, transformed into pure radiance. It started as a pinpoint above me, like a star breaking through cloud cover, then began to expand. Or perhaps I was moving toward it. In that state, directions like up and down had lost all meaning. The physical world began to fade. I could still see my body below, now surrounded by emergency personnel, but it was growing increasingly transparent, like a reflection in water that's slowly being washed away. In its place came a sensation of movement, of being drawn upward through layers of reality I never knew existed. Colors began to swirl around me, not just the familiar spectrum we see with our physical eyes, but colors that seemed to carry meaning and emotion within them. A shade of blue that spoke of infinite peace, a gold that resonated with pure truth, a white that contained all wisdom. These colors weren't just visible, they were almost audible, humming with frequencies that seemed to realign my very essence. Then came the tunnel. I'd read about this, of course. Everyone has heard about the tunnel of light in near-death experiences. But nothing could have prepared me for the reality. It wasn't so much a tunnel as a living corridor of light, its walls pulsing with what I now know was pure love. As I moved through it, or as it moved through me, I began to hear what I can only describe as music, though calling it that feels like calling the ocean a puddle. This music had layers within layers. It was every hymn I'd ever sung in church, every lullaby my mother had hummed to me, every bird's song and whale's call and star's birth song all woven together into a symphony of creation. Each note carried not just sound, but understanding. With every moment, I felt myself expanding, becoming more aware, more awake than I had ever been in my physical life. And then I felt them. Presences. At first, they were like whispers at the edge of awareness, but they grew stronger as I moved deeper into the light. Some felt familiar, carrying echoes of loved ones I'd lost. My father's steady strength, my grandmother's gentle wisdom. Others were entirely unknown to me, yet somehow more familiar than my own breath had been. But these were just the herald of what was to come. As the tunnel of light began to open into something vast and incomprehensible, I became aware of a presence so profound, so all-encompassing, that every conception I'd ever had of divinity seemed like a child's crayon drawing compared to a cosmic masterpiece. Time had no meaning in this place, but if I were to translate it into earthly terms, I believe this was about 3 minutes into my clinical death. The EMTs below were still fighting to restart my heart, unaware that I was on the threshold of understanding truths that would shake the foundations of everything I thought I knew. As I felt myself being drawn toward that presence, I knew with unshakable certainty that what I was about to experience wasn't just meant for me. The message I was about to receive, the urgent warning about the 18 months ahead, would be meant for all of humanity. But first, I had to pass through what I can only describe as a veil of pure understanding, where every question I'd ever had about existence was about to be answered in ways that would both terrify and inspire me. The presence drew closer, or perhaps I drew closer to it. And then, everything was love. Not love as we understand it on Earth, not the conditional, limited love we experience in our human relationships. This was love in its purest form, love as a fundamental force of creation, love that contained within it all knowledge, all truth, all possibility. It poured through me like liquid light, dissolving every barrier, every fear, every limitation I'd ever known. The presence resolved itself into a being of such magnificent radiance that even attempting to describe it feels like an act of reduction. It wasn't anthropomorphic. There was no beard, no throne, none of the images I'd grown up seeing in Sunday school. Instead, it was as if all the light in every galaxy, all the wisdom of all ages, all the love of every parent for every child who had ever lived, had been concentrated into a single point of consciousness. And it knew me. Not just Laurel Thorne, the elementary school teacher from Connecticut, but every version of me that had ever existed or would exist. It knew my deepest fears, my secret hopes, my unspoken prayers. In its presence, I was utterly transparent, utterly known, and utterly loved. Communication wasn't in words. It was in pure understanding, downloaded directly into my consciousness. But for the sake of sharing this experience, I'll translate it as best I can into dialogue. Beloved, the presence conveyed, and in that single concept was contained my entire existence, my purpose, my place in the vast tapestry of creation. You have been chosen to witness and to warn. Scenes began to unfold around me, as if the fabric of reality itself had become a cosmic viewing screen. I saw our Earth, beautiful and blue, spinning in the vast darkness of space. But something was changing. I watched as invisible currents of energy began to shift and realign themselves around the planet. The next 18 months, the presence conveyed, will bring a convergence. The scenes accelerated. I saw weather patterns changing in ways our meteorologists haven't predicted. I witnessed the Earth's magnetic field fluctuating, creating effects that our scientists are only beginning to understand. But more than the physical changes, I saw something happening to humanity itself, a great awakening, but one preceded by intense challenges. I saw people glued to their screens, consuming news that made them angry and afraid. I saw division growing deeper, not just between nations, but within communities, within families. But then I saw something else, points of light appearing, person by person, community by community. Each light represented someone awakening to a deeper truth, choosing love over fear, unity over division. The choice approaches, the presence conveyed. Humanity stands at a crossroads. The visions continued, showing me specific events that would unfold. I was shown dates, sequences, patterns, some of which I was permitted to remember and share, others that were sealed away in my consciousness, to be revealed only at the appointed time. But the most critical revelation was about a spiritual shift that would begin to accelerate in the coming months. I saw waves of energy washing over the earth, affecting every living thing. These waves would bring both challenge and opportunity. They would intensify whatever was already present in each person's heart. Those who cling to fear will find more to fear, the presence explained. Those who choose love will find love multiplied. The division is not punishment, but purification. I was shown how this process would unfold in 3 distinct phases over the 18 months. The first phase would bring increasing chaos in our systems: financial, political, social. The second phase would see many people turning to false solutions, seeking safety in control and restriction. But the third phase, this was what filled me with both awe and urgent concern. In the third phase, which would begin approximately 14 months from now, humanity would face its moment of choice. I saw 2 potential futures overlaid upon each other, like double-exposed film. In one future, humanity chose fear, leading to a dark period of conflict and restriction. In the other, a critical mass of people chose love and awareness, catalyzing a transformation more profound than anything in recorded history. This is why you have been brought here, the presence conveyed, to witness these possibilities and to carry back a message of hope and warning. But there was more. I was shown how small choices made by individuals would create ripple effects far beyond their immediate circumstances. I saw how acts of kindness, moments of forgiveness, choices for love over fear would create networks of light that would help stabilize the Earth's energy field during the coming changes. The presence then showed me something that made my soul tremble, a counterforce that was also at work. I saw how entities that feed on fear and division were attempting to influence humanity's choices, primarily through technology and artificial intelligence. These forces weren't evil in the traditional sense. They were simply operating from a different agenda, one that didn't prioritize human spiritual evolution. The warning must be shared, the presence impressed upon me, but without fear. For fear is the very weapon used against humanity's awakening. I was then given specific instructions about how to share this message, including the very format I'm using now. I was shown how certain combinations of words, shared with pure intention, would carry frequencies that would help awaken others to their own inner knowing. As these revelations poured into me, I felt myself expanding beyond anything I'd ever imagined possible. Every question I'd ever had about existence was being answered, though many of these answers existed in frequencies of understanding that my human mind couldn't fully translate or retain. But just as I felt I might dissolve completely into this ocean of understanding, I felt a gentle but firm pull backward. The presence had one final message for me. Remember, the presence conveyed with infinite tenderness. It is not the magnitude of action that matters, but the purity of intention. Each soul who awakens becomes a lighthouse for others. In that moment, I was shown a vision so beautiful it brought what felt like tears of light to my celestial form. I saw how every small act of kindness, every moment of genuine forgiveness, every choice to love despite fear, created ripples of light that extended far beyond our physical world. These ripples intersected with others, forming a web of light that was gradually enveloping our planet. But then came the critical warning. Time, as you know it, is compressing. The 18 months ahead will feel like both an eternity and an instant. Many will be tempted to despair, to give in to fear, to turn against one another. This is why you must share what you have witnessed. I was shown specific dates: March 15th, July 7th, and November 23rd of the coming year would mark critical junctures, points where collective human consciousness would face significant choices. I saw how these dates aligned with celestial events, though I was made to understand that it wasn't the events themselves that were significant, but rather humanity's collective response to them that would shape the future. The presence then revealed something that struck me to my core. The children must be prepared. They chose to incarnate for these times. I was shown how the young souls in my classroom, and children everywhere, were actually advanced beings who had volunteered to be here for this planetary transformation. They would need guides who understood their true nature, who could help them maintain their inner light as the world moved through its metamorphosis. As this understanding settled into my consciousness, I felt the first gentle tug back toward my physical form. But before the return process began in earnest, I was given clear instructions about the immediate future. Share this message not with fear, but with the joy of awakening. Help others understand that what appears as chaos is actually transformation. The storms come not to destroy, but to clear the way for what must emerge. I was shown how to recognize the signs in others, the subtle indicators that someone was beginning to awaken to their deeper purpose. I learned how to hold space for this awakening without pushing or pulling, how to be what the presence called a midwife to consciousness. The pull toward my body grew stronger, but the presence had one final message. Remember, love is not merely an emotion. It is the fundamental force of creation itself. In the time of choosing that approaches, this understanding will be crucial. As I began to descend, the sensations changed. The all-encompassing light began to fade, though I could still feel its warmth. The cosmic music shifted to a lower frequency. I became aware again of my surroundings, of the earthly plane I was returning to. I could see the EMTs still working on my body, their movements now seeming almost ritualistic from my perspective. The young EMT was preparing for another defibrillation attempt. I felt a sensation like a gentle but firm push, and suddenly, I was rushing back into my body with tremendous force. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. Every cell seemed to scream as consciousness returned to physical form. I heard voices, urgent and excited. "We've got a pulse." "She's back." The next few hours were a blur of hospital rooms, medical tests, and concerned faces. The doctors were amazed. 11 minutes and 43 seconds without a heartbeat. Yet my brain showed no signs of damage. They called it a miracle. They had no idea how right they were. As I lay in the hospital bed that evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that seemed like pale echoes of what I'd witnessed, I knew that my life's purpose had been transformed. The teacher in me had been given the most important lesson plan of all: how to help humanity navigate the crucial months ahead. This isn't just my story. It's a message for everyone who feels called to be part of this great transformation. The next 18 months will bring challenges, yes, but they also bring unprecedented opportunities for awakening. Each of us has a choice to make, and that choice will ripple out into the fabric of reality itself. What I experienced in those 11 minutes and 43 seconds was just the beginning. The real journey, our collective journey, lies ahead. And it begins with a simple choice. Will we let fear guide us, or will we choose love? The answer to that question will determine not just our individual futures, but the future of human consciousness itself. And the time to choose is now.